Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Terri Cole Show. Today I'm going to be talking about the fact that spring has finally sprung. Thank you. So I don't know where you live, but where we live, it is finally beautiful out. And this time of year always inspires me to want to get rid of clutter, to clean my house, to open the windows, to get rid of all the dust. It seems like in the winter, I was just talking to my mother and she was like, suddenly it got sunny and I feel like my house is disgustingly dirty, which I can tell you it is not. But I was like, right, Mom, we don't see it when it's so dark outside. But there's more to it than that. For me, because I'm a psychotherapist, so I'm very interested in a psychological spring clean ritual that I'm going to be sharing with you today on the show. Now, all of you, I imagine, have heard about the life-changing magic of tidying up, right? The Japanese art of decluttering and organizing. Super famous book put out by Marie Kondo. She has a television show. She's basically the queen of decluttering and how transformative this can be for your life. There's a whole Japanese art around this, honoring the things that you are getting rid of, thanking them, whole entire process. Those of you who watch the show know what I'm talking about. She's so amazing and so authentic, and there's something so, so real about her. Like her heart is really in the right place, but what she came up with is also pretty ingenious. So I'm not going to walk you through how to condo your house because you can watch television for that. What I will do, though, is share with you how I think that you can condo your mind. Would you like to Marie Kondo your mind? I think you probably would. So let's move into what does that look like and why do we need to do it? I do this periodically in my life because it's very easy to hold on to stuff psychologically and not even be aware that we're doing it. So if you think about, there was a study that was done that claims, and there's a lot of people disputing it, maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but that we have somewhere between 60 and 80 thoughts a day, right? So Stanford University researcher Fred Luskin did this study a bunch of years ago and basically said, so most people have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Let's just go with that. But then the real mind-blowing piece of Fred Luskin's work was that 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. I mean, how boring are we as human beings that we have the same thoughts over and over? And a lot of times these are the ones that might keep you up at night, weigh you down, right? But they're taking up space in your subconscious mind. So if we think about the way Marie Kondo would tell us to declutter our home, she would start with the clothing, and that you would take out everything you own, every single thing, and put it in a huge, massive pile so that you can actually, grasp how much crap you have, I think. It is a real visual. Now, we can't exactly do that with our thoughts, but there is a way for you to basically take an inventory to figure out what is it that's taking up all the space in your mind. What are your repetitive thoughts 90% of the time, right? Think about that right now. And it's not just negative thoughts, right? That's one piece of this, and that's an important, of course, as a psychotherapist, I think that's a very important piece, that we don't want a lot of negative self-talk, and we don't want a lot of complaining and yucking all over everything, where we're always weighing in and judge whatever's going on basically around us, other people, because that's such a low vibration. It also takes up bandwidth. So it's not about becoming, you have to completely police your thoughts, but you really do have to raise your awareness about what you're giving that precious space to. There's only so much space in our mind. And what I'm finding as I'm aging is that the more information, the more data I collect, it's harder to remember things because there's so much chaos. It's almost like we need that process of moving things out that are not serving us. But before we can get to any of that. We have to first be aware of what are we holding in our mind. Because it's almost like, science refers to it as selective inattention, right? So if you're someone who has children, you might have, brightly colored plastic toys or crap all over your house. You might not even be aware of it. You might not see it anymore because when you have toddlers, you know that stuff is going to be around for a long time. And if you let it make you completely crazy, then you can never get on with your life. It's really hard when you have little kids, any of you who know, to keep a house very tidy all the time. It's basically impossible. But we don't want to have selective inattention to thoughts that are taking up space, precious real estate in our mind that are basically bringing us down or not doing anything positive for us, right? We want this way we want to move those thoughts out, all of those collected, there's psychological crap that we collect in the same way that we collect physical crap in the world, right? So moving into what can you do? The first thing is I want you to get a journal or have some kind of a journal in a notebook. You're just going to do kind of a mind dump, everything that's been occupying your brain space. You know what those things are. So they can be your worries. They can be anything like any regrets that you may have. They can also be these really annoying things on your to-do list that you keep saying you're going to do, but you keep not doing. Maybe you owe someone a wedding gift, and now it's getting to the point where it's almost too late to send, what are we waiting for? So in the end of this, I'm going to give you something to do so that you can actually get those things done, because I find it so mind-blowing. If somebody gets in touch with me, and usually I'm pretty responsive, if I don't get right back to them, I put it in a place in my mind. So there's like a place where I'm like, don't forget to pick up milk, don't forget to call that person back, don't forget. The amount of energy and bandwidth that it takes for me to tell myself not to forget something that I'm continuing to forget during the day. I'm not doing it. But then at night, I'm like, oh crap, I didn't call Betty back. Shit, I got to do that tomorrow. We have to create some kind of a process, which I've come up with, to actually do something with those things so that they're not taking up valuable space where your creativity could be or where something better could be. How about stillness and silence? How about just having a quiet, tidy mind? How would that be? But we get so used to having a chaotic mind, a monkey mind, as some people refer to it sort of in the meditation world, that we don't even realize that there's a choice, but there really is. So on this list in your notebook, it's going to be conversations you feel like you need to have, but you haven't. Anything you ruminate about regularly. You wish that you had said this. Why didn't you do this? She was the one that got away, or he was the one that got away. The wedding gift, okay, we got that. But I want you to really search every nook and cranny of your brain for these psychological and emotional sort of dusts or cobwebs. Really, it's all clutter. And as you do the mind dump, come up with every category. What needs tidying from your professional life, your financial life, your work life, your friend, love life, the whole thing, your health and wellness life, because these are things, when you think about self-talk and how we relate to ourselves, there are certain things that we've been having that same dynamic, that same conversation in our mind for decades for some of us. I mean, actually decades. We're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And it creates this deep groove, right? Anything that's habitual creates, right, in the mind, they're basically neural pathways, this deep groove in your mind that you don't need there, that is not helping you. And so much of it is sort of automated at this point. So in this episode, I'm hoping to shake you by the shoulders and wake you up a little bit to the fact that you could be having a much more peaceful life experience. That you actually are the landlord, the owner of your mind. So as much as your mind will do whatever it does, if we don't take control, then the default position is just craziness or chaos, right? But what I'm talking about in this episode is the fact that you actually have the power to get a hold of your mind and decide what gets your attention, right? Because what we put our attention on grows. This is where energy flows. So when we're putting it on past mistakes or having regrets or being angry or feeling victimized and always going through the process of going to work and being like, oh yeah, Bob is always like that. Like that type of thing, that takes energy from you. I want you to really think about, are you, even if it's just an internal compulsive complainer or a compulsive judger, are you doing that? Because you're not doing squat to other people when you're doing that. I know, obviously, logically, you understand that, right? You judging Bob in your mind is not doing shit to Bob, right? We understand that in a logical way. So why do it? Because it isn't free for you to keep this messy, chaotic mind. There's a cost to the quality of your internal experience when you have all of this crap going on in there. And I can find with so many of my clients, it was a real awakening or an aha moment for some of my therapy clients when I asserted that they were basically the boss of their mind. Now, it takes some training sometimes if your mind is really out of control, or if you've never asserted your own control over your mind. It's hard to do. It requires present moment consciousness. It really requires you to harness the mind-blowing power of your attention and intention to change the way that your mind is just working in the default position where it is. So back to the little Marie Kondo spring clean psychological for your mind is that you're going to do this whole mind dump, and you're going to go through the lists, right? You go back through a second time. So the first time you just do the mind dump, and maybe you do that 2 times. One day you wake up and do the mind dump. This is what's in my mind. The next day, continue on the mind dump so that you've got lots of space and that you're really looking to identify what your repetitive thoughts are and what is taking up your psychological and emotional energy. So when you're done with that list, then you're going to go back through the list. And the second round, you're going to cross off anything that is not relevant to what you want, to what you need, to who you want to be. And it can be something like, even something like if you always say, I want to learn a second language, but then you don't do it. I remember my friend Marie Forleo had written something years ago, basically saying if you've had learned French on your to-do list for 5 years, but you still haven't learned it, you know what, dude? Take it off the list. Because somewhere down deep, you don't want to learn French. You just think that you should, right? So any of those things. And I'm not saying kill your bucket list. So this is very different from a bucket list. So I want to make sure that we're clear about that. Having dreams, having aspirations, of course, that is so important. So just let's say you've always had go to Hawaii on your list, but you haven't done it yet. That doesn't mean you don't really want to. Because some dreams are like lifelong dreams, or maybe it's a financial thing and it takes time. So you need to know by how you feel, what resonates with you when you're doing your lists. What is I think I should want to learn another language? And what is I really want that? And then we have to move into some kind of action. So after you go through your list, you're crossing off things that like learning French, right? So we're crossing off things, and also anything that can be handled, right? So after we cross off the crap that we can just consciously and intentionally let go of, right? It is possible. You just have to want to. So we're going to get rid of those. But then there's going to be a list of things that you can feel like you want to or need to take action on. So instead of making yourself feel bad, keep saying, I want to get in shape, or I'm going to get up early and meditate. Now we're going to move some shit into your calendar, because it's got to go from, it's like a dream, right? It's like a wish, as if someone else can get up at 6 a.m. and meditate for you. And of course, obviously they can't. And we're going to start putting some things actually into your calendar, because I really do believe that you will be amazed at how much waste you can eliminate and how much mental weight you've been carrying around that you may not even be aware of. So now you have your list of things that you can do. And I want you to, the last step in this is going to be to put those things in the calendar. So each thing, you might need a strategy. How am I going to do those things? Let's say I'm going to have a meditation practice, because that's part of what I want you to do to keep your mind space tidy once you clean it up through this guide. So there are things that you have to decide. How am I going to get that thing done? And then be really honest with yourself, because you may move things from the list, when you go through the first time. You may move things that you really think, like, I really want. You're going to go through that list on the second and third time and really look and say, do I really want to do that? Or do I simply think I should? So let's say it's meditation and you say, no, I really do want to. Okay, so now we're going to mark time in your calendar every morning, 5 minutes. All you have to do is start with 5 minutes. Have an egg timer, create what I call a little Zen den, light a candle. Do it the moment you get up, according to my meditation teacher many years ago, David G. He has a little acronym. So the morning is RPM, rise, P, meditate. I rise, pee, make the coffee, go upstairs, heat up my little corn bag for my back. I do a bunch of things, then meditate. But basically, I do it. It's the first thing that I do in the morning before I go to the gym, before I do anything. And there's something so expansive about getting this dedicated practice down, being able to actually do it in a committed way. So the way that I learned it many years ago was through doing a 21-day, and actually the originator of all those 21-day challenges that you hear out there, my friend David G. That's right, he made it up. Like, I'm not kidding, 20-something years ago. But that, then the conventional wisdom, and I think it might still be the same, that it takes 21 days to create some kind of a habit. And his whole thing was, it was very non-threatening, because his whole thing was like, hey, do it for 21 days. If you hate it, never do it again. And I was like, well, all right, that makes sense. Because I had this massive desire to meditate, but no ability to do so. Weekends, I would go to like these intensives and try to learn, read books, get guided meditations. And until I actually studied with Deepak Chopra, David G., and David Simon, who is now dead, R.I.P. David, I really couldn't do it. I didn't even understand what I was supposed to be doing. And I remember saying to David G., so what's supposed to happen when I'm meditating? And he was like, nothing. And I was like, excellent, I'm doing it right, because nothing's happening. And he basically went on to really help me understand that meditating, if you meditate for, let's say, 40 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day or whatever it is, that's basically you taking a thimble, you get to take a thimble full or a shot glass full of that stillness and silence that you've created out into the rest of the 23 and a half hours of the day, or 23 hours or whatever it is. And this, for me, that created about 2 to 3 seconds additional response time in all of my interactions, which profoundly changed my life. So why am I I'm a meditation teacher, I'm certified to do it, I've got a bunch of meditation CDs out, because I'm absolutely positive if I can meditate, anyone can meditate. Anyone, even you, person who just rolled their eyes and thought, not me. No, yes, you too. So this is an important component to keep the brain clear and tidy. And you can also do this list, Terri Cole's Marie Kondo style, psychological spring cleaning. You can do this at any point when you're feeling overwhelmed. I like the idea of doing it seasonally, so do it 4 times a year perhaps. Spring, of course, is the perfect time because this is, really is out with, everything is birthing and budding, and it's a time for growth. But we need to move stuff that's in the way of that growth out of the way. And that's exactly what this process will do. We're creating space in your mind the same way that you create space in your home. So, as we said, the stuff that made the cut, that didn't get scratched off the list, we put them basically into the calendar. Even if some of them are very far away, we need to have some kind of a plan to actually do those things. It may be a difficult conversation. Maybe you're not ready to have the conversation, but in your calendar or your phone or wherever you keep it, you're going to write a letter to Bob about what happened, and that will be your first step. You don't have to send the letter to Bob. You need to do something with that crap in your mind about being pissed off at Bob that's taking up all this space that could be used for so many better pursuits, right? And we need to have deadlines on things. So you don't have to stress yourself out, but if it's in the calendar, you need to actually be committed to doing what is in the calendar, right? We can't keep just moving it back. We have to be able to take action on these items, because if they're so far away from your inspiration that you can't even make yourself do them when they come up on the calendar, you really have to rethink, do they belong on the stay list, right? As Marie Kondo would say, we can thank that thought. When I thought I wanted to learn French, thank it for whatever we think it did for us, the way you're supposed to thank socks or a shirt that you liked, right? I think that's what jazz you do, before we give it the boot. So if you want to do that, feel free. And the last thing about meditation is that I challenge you to do 21 days of 5 minutes in the morning, light a candle, set a timer, and see what shifts internally. See if there isn't some more stillness and silence in your internal experience, because there is some carrying around mental baggage. This really uses up energy. And even if the things are not, you're supposed to send someone a thank you card, but you didn't, you know how much energy guilt takes away from you. So let's just not. Let's just be as clean as we possibly can. If you owe someone a call, call them back, right? If you set time this Saturday from 1 to 2, you're going to write your friggin' thank yous or whatever it is. I have to say, it's so much more manageable when when you get rid of the crap, what you are thinking and the space that opens up. Anything could be birthed, right? You could create anything with that space. So let's break free from having the same 80,000 thoughts 90% of our lives, shall we? I think that we shall. So I put all this into a little guide for you, so don't you worry about it. All you need to do is just download it. I hope that you found this psychological spring cleaning guide, Marie Kondo style, kind of, helpful. And if you did, please share it on your social media platforms, because this is how I will do what I want to do, which is empower as many people on this planet as possible in the little bit of time that I got here. So, to be continued, thank you so very much for listening, watching, and sharing. I hope you have an amazing week. And as always, take care of you.